If you were here for our last project, you remember I had a stack of pallets sitting here that we cut down, and we made that little simple house planner out of it. And it turned out great considering it was pallet wood. This is what's left over, and I've already ran these through the planer, except for this piece. You can tell it's in pretty rough shape. It's also got a piece of metal stuck in it that I didn't want to run through my planer. Hey, that's another use for y'all's magnets if you got any left over. But maybe we can find something else to use for these magnets. So stick around. I'm going to put this planer away, and we're going to make some more sawdust. So you saw the thumbnail. It's no secret. We're building a hexagon out of some of this wood that I have left over from the pallet. But I tell you, I've been pretty fortunate for some of this pallet wood. Look how well it turns out after just running it through the planer or sanding it with some 80 grit. Been very fortunate. But one of the things I never get lucky on, this pallet wood's never going to have a straight edge on it. So I've got a straight edge jig that I'm going to run on my table saw. I don't have a joiner, so I'm going to show you the method that I used, and we'll go from there. So this is how I tell how straight the edge is, or in this case, is not. I set it up against the fence of my table saw, and you can see right there where the edge is it's nowhere close to being straight. So we're going to put it on the jig here and see if we can straighten that out a little bit. So this is my straight edge jig, and what I do is it's got dovetail grooves in it. So I'll take the board. Here's our pencil mark, how bad that piece is gouged. And this is a straight edge, a known good straight edge on this side. And then I'll put this board against the other one here. Notice how it's lifted up just above the other board. Then I'll slide our dovetail clamps. Slide those guys in, tighten them up. Scoot our fence over. That in place. Give those one more last test. So what I'm going to do now is raise the blade so it's just above the board we're trying to put the straight edge on. There's our straight edge. The other thing I do is I also put a check mark or something on it just so I know which side, if there's any question. A lot of these boards you can tell 100% which side's been done, but you know, just keeps me honest. Now that we've got a straight edge on each one of our pieces, we can decide what we're going to cut these down to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it down to 3.5 so that if you're buying some stock at one of the big box stores, it'll be about the same dimensions when you get a 1x4 or whatever, your 2x4 or whatever you're going to make these out of. But like I said, I put a check on the edge just so I'm a reminder which side I need to put towards the fence of the table saw when I'm deciding how much I'm going to cut. But I'm going to make these 3.5, so I'll knock that out and we'll keep moving. I've got our boards cut to the right width. They're 3.5 inches wide now. We just need to decide how long we want to make them, how big we want to make this hexagon. Because like I said, we're building a hexagon, which has 6 sides. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got 7 boards. Yeah, I cut an extra one because I'm bound to screw one of these up. But talking about extra, what do you do with your extra scraps? How long do they have to be for you to keep them? How long do you keep them? Let me know in the comments, because I've got a whole box full of scraps over here that I just can't bring myself to throw away. I might use them for something. So with making a hexagon, the first thing we're going to do is set our miter saw to 30 degrees. I'm going to make my pieces 8 inches long, tip to tip. So I've already got my stop block set. I prefer to cut the angles with the board in that orientation versus putting a bevel in it and doing the diagonal cut. I'm going to cut 6 of these at 8 inches long, and that's going to be from long tip to long tip. I'll show you what that means here in just a minute, but let me go ahead and knock this out and I'll be right back. So I've cut our first angle, and this is what I'm talking about when I say long tip. We're going to make this long tip to this long tip. So make sure that your angles are in the right direction or this will never line up. And we're going to cut 6 of these, just like that. All right, so I've got all my pieces cut, and yeah, I cut an extra one just in case. And they're 8 inches from long tip to long tip. And this is a 30-degree angle on your miter saw. I'm going to take you into the other room where I got a little bit longer table so that we can put this together. Here's my method for putting these together. I've got all my pieces. I've got my 6 pieces. Make sure I don't get my 7th piece mixed up in with this and actually glue a 7th piece in. But here's what I do. I'll line all my pieces up, and then I'll roll out a piece of tape upside down, stick them all on the bottom of it so that it sticks to them, and then I'll just glue them together and then fold them up into one piece. So stand by. And then what I'll do, I'll put a little extra on one end so that when I do get them all folded up, I've got a piece to hold it together. Okay, so what we're going to do is as I glue these together, I'll just pick them up and put them together like that. Don't want to get too much squeeze out on the insides because it'll be harder to sand. Okay, let's put them together, see what happens. I'm checking just to make sure that the pieces are flush on the ends, which they are. And so we'll let the glue set up, and then we'll come back here in just a few minutes and check it out. The glue's had time to dry, and now it's time to take the tape off and see the final product. So we can still sand off any of the squeeze out we had here, but a lot of tape. But this is your finished project. So we could stop here and call this a success, but you can stick around and we'll take it to the next level. So if you want to leave here, I'll put the dimensions at the end of the video like I always do, which not really much dimensions to these, but if you want to take it to the next level, stick around, see what else we can do to this. Back in the shop with our finished Hexagon project. Turned out pretty good, if I do say so myself. Still got our magnet here on our old board that had the piece of metal in it, so let's see if we can use this magnet to float something else. Maybe a picture frame? I got these 2 5x7 frames from Dollar Tree. Yeah, I went to Dollar Tree. Could I have made them myself? Yeah, probably. But hey, this is gonna make things quick and easy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put them back to back, and then we're gonna see if we can float them. My idea is to put a little hinge on either side because you gotta have some way to get them back open eventually to put pictures in them. So we're gonna try putting a hinge on them and see how that works. So come along, I'll show you how I did it. One of the first things we're gonna have to do is cut off the stand, because you can tell when we put them together, it causes a gap because they don't sit flush inside the frame. So we're not going to need that for our purpose, so we're just going to chop that off. First thing, let's get rid of this wrapping. It's causing a reflection, which makes things pretty irritating anyway. So let's see, what's the easiest method here? Will these just break right off? I thought they might, but I think I'm going to tear the cardboard. Let's see if we can just cut these pieces right here. I'm still not sure that once we do that, these metal pieces may hit. The first thing I'm going to do is space out the hinges equally from both sides. I got these little hinges at Lowe's, and you ought to know while I was there, I forgot to get countersunk screws. So I'm dealing with these little pan heads, and what I'll do is I'll drill a pilot hole so it makes it easier to screw each one of these in. Each hinge has 4 screws total. But the problem I ran into was, since I didn't have the countersunk screws, when you try to open the frame all the way, it hits and will not open all the way. But that's not going to matter for our case because it's going to be closed. And then what we'll do is we'll drill our magnet up in the top. Okay, we've got our 1/2" Forstner bit hole drilled there. So we're going to put a little CA glue on one side of it and see if it'll hold our magnet in. We can't put it on both sides, otherwise we can't get the frame back open. So we'll put a little dab in there and hope for the best. And we're going to do the same thing. I cut this little small piece of dowel to put in here so that we can thread the eyelet into it. I think this is going to be fun. I'm going to try to drill a little bit of a countersink hole in there so I can hide that eyelet up in it just a little bit. And there's our magnet in the top of the frame, and then our eyelet in the bottom. So taking this to the next level is wrapping up pretty quick. All we got to do now is find the center of where our magnet's going to live. And I use this combination T-square. I've heard it called a little bit of both things. What do you guys call this blue square? Let me know in the comments. Right now, 1/2" Forstner bit's getting to work out again, so we'll drill that down. This is a 1/2" deep on this particular magnet because you guys bought all the rest of them out. Several of you commented about making sure you had the magnet in the right direction before you glue them in. So what I've started doing just to make sure is I stick the magnet on top of it now, and now I'll just stick it in like so to know that I've got it in the right polarity. I'm going to use my Starbond CA glue again. Just curious if any of you have used anything other than Starbond. Let me know. Now all we have to do is drill our hole for our fishing string. Some of these tight places I can't get my tape measure into, I use this digital caliper. Now just noticed that my punch leaves a way bigger hole than my drill bit's going to, so know not to do that next time. A lot of you have asked what I'm doing to tie off the fishing string. I'm just putting a little split shot sinker on them, squeezing them together with needle nose pliers. Seems to work for me. I know I heard a couple of you saying that you had your fishing line breaking, stretching. I'm just using, I think it's 12-pound test. It's off a fishing reel that I was using, and pretty sure it's 12-pound test. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to countersink a little bit of a hole just so that sinker lives up in there. maybe I'll use a Forstner bit instead. Got a really small Forstner bit. Let's see if that works any better. Yeah, that worked much better. Now I don't know, will yeah, it'll still fit in there. Of course, now I got to get it back out. There we go. So that's what we'll do. So I'm just going to cut us a chunk of this off. And then we'll tie it to the picture frame. And then we'll regroup. This picture frame is just about too heavy for the magnets. So we're going to put this split shot sinker on here. Sometimes I wrap the fishing string around it twice just to make sure that it's not going to slide. Okay, here's our finished product. The distance between the bottom of the hexagon and the frame didn't turn out quite like I hoped. The magnets are doing all they can to hold the picture frame right where it is right now. The hinges and the frame itself, they weigh a little bit more than I anticipated, so that's why we ended up with too much distance here. But that's the fun thing about woodworking. I'll cut that string, I'll stick a cross, flower, I'll put something else in this place. It doesn't have to be the picture frame. So use your imagination. Sky's the limit on what you can put here. I'll put the dimensions at the end of the video, but it's not really a whole lot to this one. But I appreciate you coming along on the journey. Till I see you again, don't forget to make more sawdust.